this is a celebration that we should have started years ago. This is going to be our first annual 911 celebration that we should have been celebrating the lives that were lost in New York City on September 11, 2001.
Absolutely.
I can say that at this point that it's going to be a great day. It's going to be bigger next year because we have to come together as a community and let them know in the South, in Tuskegee, Alabama, historic Tuskegee, Alabama, that we really appreciate the due diligence of what they did that day, and the only thing they were doing is doing their job. But we're going to make sure that this community, the state, and the world know that we did not forget.
You know what, I was amazed. I was watching the news the other day, and I discovered that over 400 firemen rushed into the towers to help other people, thousands of them really, and over 400 of them did not make it out. Now that is some kind of commitment, isn't it?
It's more of a commitment. You know, they were only doing their jobs. It was they in total that made it out. I mean, that ended up made the ultimate sacrifice was 343. That number just sticks in my head, and there were 70 police officers that end up making that ultimate sacrifice, and some emergency medical technicians and paramedics as well. So we have to just thank the Lord for one thing, that in this community nothing like that has happened, but the potential now and what's going on in this world and how everything is going, the potential is there, but we're letting them know we didn't forget.
And what about those warriors on that airplane, man, that fought to the finish? Now, that is some kind of bravery.
Well, one thing about it, you're absolutely right, because those planes were headed toward locations to cause more destruction. They sacrificed their own lives and their families. I mean, all I could do is say thank you to those people that took it upon themselves to go up there with those people that had hijacked the plane and make sure that it go in another direction instead of going in the direction it was headed. So
I want to welcome you to the City of Tuskegee 9/11 Remembrance. It has been 20 years, September 11, 2001, that New York City suffered a tragedy. On September 11, the battalion chief of Battalion 1 witnessed American Airlines Flight 11 crash into the North Tower of the World Trade Center and immediately radioed a multiple alarm incident. Over the course of the next 3 hours, 121 engine companies, 62 ladder companies, and 27 fire officers were deployed to the scene. All off-duty firefighters were recalled. The first time the FDNY has issued a total recall in over 30 years. In addition to the regular fire apparatus and personnel assigned to this incident, Fire Department New York also deployed its only hazmat unit, its command center, its field communications unit, all 5 of his rescue units, both of his high-rise units, 6 of his 7 squad units, and 1 of his 2 tactical support units. When planes crashed into the towers, 24,000 gallons of jet fuel ignited a fire that spread to 100,000 tons of organic debris and 230,000 gallons of transformers, heating, and diesel fuel, diesel oil in the building, setting off a gigantic toxic plume of soot and dust. The fires continued to burn during the rescue and recovery operations at Ground Zero, and workers were exposed to chemicals like asbestos, carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide, crystalline silica, and other metals and particulates. After all the blood, sweat, and tears, the total deaths, 343 firefighters from Fire Department New York, 37 police officers of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey Police Department, 23 police officers of the New York City Police Department, NYPD, 8 emergency medical technicians and paramedics from private emergency medical services, 3 New York State Court officials, and 1 patrolman from the New York Fire Patrol. The health problems that existed, and to this day, over 2,000 active duty fire department personnel, firefighters, and EMS that are affected. Over 110 firefighters have lost their lives after 9/11. The fire department of New York, again, lost 343 firefighters. Many today exhibiting many other types of cancers. The grim toll includes over 111 fire department New York responders, again, who have died, 44 of them from cancer. Research has found thyroid, colon, prostate, and blood cancers more prevalent among FD New York members who served at Ground Zero than those who did not. More than 7,000 fire department New York firefighters and EMTs have been treated for 9/11 injury or illness, now almost 14 years later. 5,400 members have been diagnosed with lower respiratory diseases such as asthma, chronic bronchitis, emphysema, COPD, sarcoidosis, and pulmonary fibrosis. 5,200 members have been diagnosed with upper respiratory diseases. 3,700 members have been diagnosed with mental stress-related disorders. 5,400 members have been diagnosed with acid reflux or gastroesophageal reflux disorders. 1,100 have been developed a cancer caused by 911 toxins. As we gather here in Tuskegee, Alabama to commemorate the 20th year of the Twin Tower attack on September 11, 2001, please never forget the men and women that made the ultimate sacrifice, those that are actively serving in our community and communities across our country. Keep your eyes open, watch your six, and constantly train even harder for the unknown. Thank you. God bless America. At this point, will everybody stand? Please remain standing for the posting of colors.
One time, up. Team, up. Left, right. Post. Reset. On. Order. On. Right. Fight. Team. Halt.
Following the agenda, next we'll have speakers. First, we'll start off with the Mayor of the City of Tuskegee, Mayor Lawrence, Tony Paygood.
Thank you, Manager Swanson. Good morning. Again, I'll say it's a great day in the city of Tuskegee, in all of Macon County. And it's a great day because today on this 20th anniversary, we recognize 9/11 and those heroes of 9/11. We particularly today recognize our first responders and say, if nothing else I can say in this brief remarks today is to say thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. For all of those who served at that time and who continue to serve today, we say thank you. Councilman Ford, thank you for being here on behalf of our City Council. Fire Chief, Mr. Willie Smith, our Chief Jenkins, Police Chief, thank you for being here, and our former Chief Patrick, thank you for joining us here today. It's important, I want to thank our City Manager, Mr. Swanson, for putting this first memorial service together, because it's important that we recognize what happened on 9/11. And it's important we recognize, as this theme says, let's never forget 9/11 and those of 9/11. The key theme that I've heard in the last few days and our president talked about was about unity. And that's what we've got to remember today. As we stand under this great flag representing the 50 states, those 50 states are unified states. That's why we're the United States of America. We're not the divided states, we're the United States of America. In this state of Alabama, we've got to be a united state of Alabama. When we're talking about saving lives, we don't need a division between the federal government and the state government. We need to save lives. That's what the sacrifice was about. It was about unity. It was about this country being together. And even in our local community, we want to pull together closer. And whatever we do to make it a better community for ourselves, Tuskegee, Macon County, the state of Alabama, and the United States of America, it's about unity. So yes, we recognize those first responders and we say thank you. We recognize their sacrifice. We think about the courage that they had. They didn't hesitate to step forward, to serve, to do what was necessary, to sacrifice. We think about the common individual citizens on those planes who jumped in to save lives. We think about those at the hospitals who time and time again, the EMTs along with the first responders, who responded and did what was necessary. So we can be thankful here today. We can recognize this beautiful day in the city of Tuskegee because what others have done and what people like yourselves do today. Again, to our first responders, whether it's the fire department, the police department, the EMTs, the ambulance services, or the medical workers, let's give them a round of applause and say thank you. We salute you in your continued effort. We want to remind our community how important this is. We sometimes and oftentimes take them for granted. They are putting their lives on the line every day, just as those who did in 9/11 put their lives on the line for our community and for our country. So I want to remind us today, we have an obligation as citizens to recognize and respect our first responders. We have an obligation to never forget and remember that the purpose and the reason the people jumped to the front was because of their families. It was because of their community. It was because of their country. Never be divided. Never let anyone get us divided. It ain't about Democrat or Republican. It ain't about the eastern states or the western states, northern states or the southern states, black, white, or otherwise, Latino or Hispanic. It's about us being together. And that's what 9/11 was about. People stood together, came together, got united, did what was necessary, and our country moved forward. And it's moving forward today, 20 years later, because of sacrifices of courageous men and women, particularly our first responders. So again, I say it's a great day in the city of Tuskegee because of you. We salute you and all that you do and represent. We have nothing else to say but thank you, thank you, thank you. It's a great day in the city of Tuskegee. We're blessed and we thank you again.
We're adding an addition to the agenda briefly. Councilman Ford will be the next speaker.
Good morning. This is what I'm talking about. Tuskegee, Alabama, pausing to remember 9/11, those thousands of people who lost their lives, with the flag of the United States of America flying high and proudly. Let us pause and say to our city manager, Mr. Derek Swanson, that's what I'm talking about. Let's say to our fire chief, Willie Smith, and to our police chief, and to all of the men, stand up, police officers and first responders, wherever you are. Stand up so that we can see you. Let us put our hands together and let these public servants, these public workers, these first responders know that we appreciate you, we're proud of you, and we're proud of the fact that you are willing to do what they did in New York on 9/11. I see the Honorable Frank Lee. Come on over here and join us. The mayor and council, we would want you to stand with us. Let's give him a round of applause, because every day as our emergency management director, he's fighting to help us save lives. It is my honor today to join our mayor, the Honorable Tony Paygood, and on behalf of the members of the council, and on behalf of District 2, to salute the men and women who are first responders. We want you to know that we appreciate you. Let us never forget what happened on 9/11. I had the opportunity to visit the World Trade Center, to be at the top of that building, to dine at the windows of the world. It is so tall that you feel like you're in space. So can you imagine how those people felt who were trapped in that building, high up, who had to face and make a decision on whether or not to be burned to death or jump to their death? Many chose to jump to their death. That's how terrible that day was. On that day, during that period, I was in Africa, hosting the World Conference of Mayors, and we were trying to get back to the United States of America, but the message to all airports that no planes could fly from Africa or anywhere else in the world back to the United States of America, because on that day we were concentrating on protecting America from that point forward. But as I stood on the coast of Africa, looked across the Atlantic Ocean toward where America, my home, was, while I was proud to have African heritage, I was also at that time proud of the fact that I was an American. And I realized at that time how precious freedom is in the United States of America. I realized that I wanted to return home to America, to my country, but I could not, because terrorists had stricken our country, had down our World Trade buildings, which were the symbol of our economy and the symbol of the greatest enterprise on the face of the globe. I could not get back to America. And so I yearned for freedom. What I'm saying to you today is, when those buildings fell that day, freedom fell temporarily, but freedom crushed to the ground rose again. And today a memorial stands in New York City, a memorial that we will forever pay homage to and respect, because we made a commitment on that day that never again will America allow herself to be stricken and caught off guard. And that is why every day we as Americans must prepare and support our country and support our government and stand up against those who would try to overthrow our government, whether they are enemies within or from without. We must protect this flag. That is why it is this flag we need to see flying on the square of Tuskegee, Alabama, and not a Confederate statue. It is this flag that we must be willing to fight for and willing to die for. And so to you, the first responders, we salute you today. We are proud of you. And we want you to know that in city government, we're going to support you. We're going to make sure that you are paid well. We're going to make sure that you have good benefits, because you are willing to put your lives on the line. And so today, to the police and to the firemen and to all of the public service employees, we salute you. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Next we have Fire Chief Willie Smith.
Good morning, Mayor Paygood and elected officials and guests. 20 years after our nation was attacked, the event of September 11th, 2001 may be fading in the minds of many Americans. But for those of us who spend our lives in the service of others, be it in the fire service, police service, or the military, the memories of the terrorist attacks that took so many lives remain fresh. The men of the Tuskegee Fire Department remember the 343 New York City firefighters and the paramedics killed that day while rushing into those two doomed buildings as everyone else was rushing to get out. We remember the 23 New York police officers and 37 Port Authorities police officers killed. We remember the 125 civilians and military personnel killed in the Pentagon. And we remember the nearly 3,000 civilians who perished in the towers on those 4 airlines that day. There is a distinct feeling you get as a firefighter just a few times in your career. It's the feeling of arriving at the scene of the incident and your sixth sense telling you this one is going to be dangerous and you might not make it home. I have no doubt that the men and women who responded to the World Trade Center that day had that same feeling as they got off their rigs and out of their patrol cars. They had their feelings and they went ahead anyway. Many of them to a certain death. As the years since 9/11 continue to pass, as they always will, what bigger lesson can we take with us? What can we hold close besides the memories of the heroes? All of them, civilian and sworn, who died on that terrible day. We can hold the ideas of service, the idea of giving a small piece of us back. As we remember what these heroes tried to do for the victims of a senseless terror attack. As firefighters, we serve every time we put on our uniform, and many of us spend our days off serving our friends, our families, our neighbors, our communities, and our nation. What better way to honor the memory of the fallen than to commit to service? The Tuskegee Fire Department will continue to serve and to never forget the ultimate sacrifice that were made on September 11, 2001. Thank you.
Following the agenda, next will be Police Chief Lloyd Jenkins.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to say thank you to everybody that came out to support this day, because it is a day of remembrance. Even though on that day 20 years ago there were tragic events that happened on that day, also the aftermath from that day, I think we should take from it. We should take that day as a day to where we seen virtue and unity within our community, within our city, and within our nation, to bring us together as one country. Now, even with the things that we have going on in our country today, we need to look back on that day and remember that unity that we had, so we can move forward. We can't let these petty things that happen in our life, in our nation, divide us as a country. So again, on that day too, on September the 11th, 2020, the first plane struck the north side of the World Trade Center. Now, on that day, I remember vaguely, I remember exactly where I was. I can remember the time. I can remember everything that I was doing on that day. And it put a sense of anger in me, because one, I'm like, how can somebody have that much evil, that much hate in them to do something like that? And it also gave me a sense of pride, because it made me want to go out and fight for my country. It made me want to be part of something. Now, looking back on that day, we had many first responders that went to that call. And just like Chief Smith was saying, when we go to a call, we always have it in the back of our mind that we may not make it. And on that day, some people did not make it. They made the ultimate sacrifice. Now, as us being law enforcement and fire personnel and public safety officials, we don't go in there with that in our mind that's going to stop us from doing what we have to do. We go in there to do a job and to save lives. So I just want people to remember this day of 9/11 as a day of remembrance for those people that gave that ultimate sacrifice on that day. I also want people to remember those civilians that lost their lives in that. I also want people to remember those military personnel that also lost their lives. So again, on 9/11, I want this day to be a full day of remembrance. At this time, I'm going to ask the city officials and the fire chief to come up with me as we present these memorial wreaths in remembrance to those fallen heroes. Thank you all. You can be seated. Now at this time, we will perform a final call of our radio in remembrance of those fallen heroes also. Those members of the New York City Fire Department, those members of the New York City Police Department, and also of the PA Police Department also. (601 to 46). Prepare for final call.
10-4.
601.
Dispatch to FD New York PD, and PAPD. Dispatch to FD New York PD, and PAPD. Dispatch to FD New York PD, and PAPD. On this day, 20 years ago, our nation was attacked, and police and fire rushed in to save lives, and many made the ultimate sacrifice. And this day is in remembrance of those heroes. New York City Fire Department 343, New York City Police Department 23, and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey Police Department 37 did not respond. They are 10-6 and all are due all accolades for making the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty.